You know, folks, with the show now being available on triblive.com and with all my Yinzer friends up there in the Pittsburgh area, you get to start to meet some wonderful individuals in and around the city. And I did just that with Caroline Cease and the folks at Enchanted Destinations. If you're ready to start planning your dream vacation, be sure to check out Carolyn and the folks there at Enchanted Destinations. If you're planning to go to Disney World or Universal Studios, take a cruise, or a vacation at an all-inclusive resort, go to enchanteddestinations.net, and Carolyn and her folks are going to help you out and plan the perfect getaway. They're great people doing great things, and they are a wonderful help for anybody that's looking to book the perfect vacation. And thinking of the perfect golf getaway and buddies trip location, remember our folks over at the Macklemore, which is a wonderful resort located just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee, high atop Lookout Mountain. It is a casual 2-hour drive from Atlanta, Nashville, and Birmingham. The existing Highlands course is now ranked in the top 100 courses you can play in the U.S. by Golf Digest. The 18th hole is ranked in the top 10 finishing holes in the world. A second course, The Keep, is under construction and will open summer of 2024. The Keep is a Bill Bergen, Reese Jones design and features a 1.5 miles of dramatic cliff edge, with every inch of that edge filled up with a golf hole. A world-class hotel, Cloudland Lookout Mountain Curio Collection by Hilton, will open spring of 2024. Both have incredible views into historic Macklemore Cove, 1,200 feet below. You got to see it to believe it, folks. Stay, dine, and play golf above the clouds at Macklemore. Go online to macklemore.com to book your stay and play package. Now let's talk grips. I want to tell you about Lambkin grips. Every shot, as you know, has its own unique feel. The trick? Feel comfortable with each one. And comfort is built into the very DNA of Sonar Plus Black grips. Composed of their Genesis material that provides supreme comfort and durability, with their fingerprint technology, creates a strong connection and unforgettable touch. The game changes from shot to shot. The feel in your hand shouldn't. Lambkin, feel is everything. I also want to remind you about the all-new Stealth 2 driver from TaylorMade. If there's one thing we know golfers want from a driver, it's distance. But there's actually two things we all want: distance, and let's not forget, forgiveness. That's why TaylorMade designed the Stealth 2 driver with even more carbon for even more forgiveness. To learn more about the new Stealth 2 driver from TaylorMade, visit them online at TaylorMadeGolf.com. Okay, now back is our resident director of instruction, Tom Patri. Tom has some exciting news about where you can find him this winter and beyond, which we'll get into in a moment. The man has logged more miles in the White Beast than even his accountant can believe. As always, be sure to go out to subscribe to his YouTube channel. On there, you'll be able to get over 300 free video lessons. Be sure to follow him on Instagram at Tom Patri Golf and online at tompatri.com. And it's always a joy to get to say that he is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Good evening, TP. How are you, my friend? How are you, Tom?
So, Chrissy.
Well, let me lift your spirits just a little bit, because this is our 85th show together. But beyond that,
oh my God,
next week, and I know you're not going to be with me next week, would have marked the 8th year to the day, November 8th, 2015, that you would have first joined the show. So happy anniversary, TP.
Well, thank you, pal. It's been everyone has been a pleasure being with you, and it's not just Tom's feelings, but it's everybody you guys touch on this show. So many of the teachers that I know that you have come to know, and players we both know, all feel exactly the same about Chris Mascaro. So it's our pleasure to be with you each and every time.
Well, I appreciate that very much. We got a lot to really get into tonight. The majority of it is very, very happy news, but sad news to get kicked off with. I know we just learned that Bobby Knight passed away, and I know he was somebody that was special to you.
Yeah, Coach Knight became a friend and kind of a mentor advisor on the coaching side, and somebody that was awful good to me with sharing information and sharing technique. And I've never thrown any chairs on his behalf, but all kidding aside, he was special to me, and I think, a very misunderstood character because I saw the other side of him. I saw the compassionate, giving, caring side. I saw the guy that had a graduation rate of right around 98%. I saw a guy that, um, when Landon Turner had his accident, did some special things to make sure he was set up for the rest of his life, and things that he would never talk about or never go public with. There's a very different side to a very complex person, but he was a hell of a coach and a hell of a human being behind the scenes, and he'll be missed.
Indeed. All right, so Tom, last time you teased all of us about some exciting news about where we're going to be able to find you going forward. So tell us, which club hit the instructor lottery?
Well, it's funny, Chris. We were one day short of being able to announce it on the last show, but the club that I'm going to talk about tonight asked me to keep it quiet until they announced it to the membership, which they did right after our last show. I was approached kind of very, very suddenly by one of the really great clubs in the Naples area, Twin Eagles, and they've asked me to come. They asked me to become their director of player development, which is a fancy way of saying their director of instruction. Um, 36-hole complex, an incredible, maybe I think possibly, and I don't think I say this lightly, maybe the best practice facility in South Florida, East or West Coast. Huge double-ended range, great target system, great short game area, three beautiful putting greens, great conditions. They just finished a $28 million renovation to the clubhouse. Just a beautiful spot, and I'm blessed to have been asked. It was kind of a real humble experience. It's a place I've been kind of looking for to land at since I came to Florida 20 plus years ago. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the membership at Crown Colony for 2 great years there. Um, Wonderful membership there, and I appreciate what they did for me. But this place is literally 2 miles from my home, and I'm so excited to be there. And they've agreed to allow me to teach non-members, so people can still come and get to me.
There you go. All right. So
Yeah.
now that the door is still open for us to come see you, tell everybody
Well,
how they can do it.
well, no, wait a second. No, people will come see me. You've been asked to come see me on multiple occasions,
I have?
and
I don't remember that.
yeah, of course you don't. You won't get off your ass because I mean it will take an effort if you had to do that. So that's capital
Thanks for
L A
putting that out there.
capital LAZY. There we go. Okay.
Yes, everybody knows.
They can still find me the same way as Chris. I mean, the website is just tompatri.com, and they can certainly email me at tpatri@mindspring.com. All my contact information is on the website, so they can still get to me that way, and I can handle arranging for them to have a spot in the batting order.
So tell them where Twin Eagles is exactly.
Twin Eagles is in North Naples, off of Immokalee Road. And Chris, it's really cool because it's a corridor of Immokalee Road that's so far east now that it backs up to another 36-hole facility called Bonita Bay East, and the two facilities right there combined alone are probably close to, I don't know, they got to be close to 3,000 acres. So the wildlife is incredible. We went out and played the other day. One of my guys was in town. We played in the afternoon, and just for example, we had a 2 o'clock tee time, and we counted over 100 deer
Oh
and
my!
100 turkeys. Florida panther, bobcats. Obviously, Twin Eagles is called Twin Eagles for a reason. The bird life's incredible. We have our friend the Florida alligator. We have wild boar. It's like Jurassic Park out there. So, and you know what an animal fan I am. So I'm in heaven. I drove out to the teaching building the other morning to open up, and there were literally, I think, about 7 or 8 deer at the door waiting for me in the morning. So
Wow.
I'm in heaven. It's a really cool place. Really cool place.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, you are running the White Beast into the ground. Talk about all the other places you've been since we last met you.
Yeah, well, we had an interesting week, Denise and I. We lost our dog, Salty Dog, this past week, so he's up there with Coach Knight right now, and they're trying to figure out how to work the full court press. So that was a real setback for us and kind of a sad day. So Denise is down in Key West on some business. So I drove down to Key West after work the other day and spent the evening with her trying to pick up her spirits, and then got up in the morning and drove from Key West to Miami, Florida, because I was asked by Jimmy McLean to present at his annual teaching summit, which was a real honor. Being asked by Jimmy, not many people get asked, and I was really honored, truthfully honored and humbled to be asked, and was in the room with kind of a who's who of young guys. It was really fun, so I made a couple hour presentation there. Um, Came home that night, taught yesterday at Twin Eagles, got back in the Beast this morning, and drove to Lakeland, Florida, to do a full day kind of a wedge school for the Florida Southern College men's golf team, which is where I played, and then just drove back this afternoon, getting home in time to be on next on the tee with Chris Mascaro tonight, and back to Twin Eagles tomorrow. So other than that, I've had nothing to do this week at all. I've just been kind of sitting around.
So let's take that last part. You went back to Florida Southern and the Lone Palm Golf Club. What was it like for you to be back on campus?
Chris, it's interesting you say that, because I did an Instagram live today, and of course you didn't watch that because you don't really keep up with me at all. So, but
Yeah, so I had no idea to ask this question.
The Instagram live was I got there on purpose about an hour early before I was going to meet the team and meet Coach White, and I try to go up there and work with the team once a year, and I go back for the golf team fundraiser, which happens to be next week, as a matter of fact. So I got to go back up again, but Lone Palm and Florida Southern basically changed my life. I transferred in there as a junior as an okay college player, and I think I left there as a pretty good college player. The place meant the world to me. Spent time there with a lot of good players. Buddy Alexander, who was living there, who went on to be the Gator golf coach for 20 plus years and is a Hall of Famer. Produced Camilo Villegas and Billy Horschel and Brian Gay and a host of other guys. Um, Andy Bean was on property at the time at the height of his career in 80 and 81. Um, Aside from a really solid college golf team, and so many guys, because of Buddy, because of Andy, came through there to play and practice. And I spent time with most of those people. There were different tour players at the time. So the 2 year education was a compressed 2 years that just exposed me to so many good players and technique and understanding of how to play the game at a higher level. And really didn't know it then it was going to lead to a teaching career that experience certainly embellished and helped. I get back on that property each year, like I said, once or twice a year, and all those kind of memories rush back in. It's a place that's very special to me, so it was fun being up there today.
I want to stay there for a minute and dip back into your college career. Because in 1980, you and your squad at Florida Southern finished second in the national championship. You finished individually second. You guys finished second behind Columbus State. You guys come back the very next year. The team wins the national championship by 36 strokes over Texas State. You win the individual national championship by 4 strokes. And talk about how the second place finish in 80, did that fuel both you and the rest of the team to come back even stronger and to go on to win the national championship?
There was a little controversy in that junior season when we finished second and I finished second. It was funny. Individually, I had led for the first, second, and third rounds, Chris, and I got on the 15th tee of the last round in bad weather conditions on a very hard golf course. I was even through 14, and back then, coach couldn't really do a lot, but he could communicate with you on a tee box. And he said to me on 15 tee, "Do you want to know how you stand?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I felt like I was playing very solid for a very hard day, and it started out with a couple of shot lead. And he said, "You're 2 behind." I said, "I'm 2 behind. How can I be 2 behind?" He goes, "Well, Paul Perini from Troy State shot 65 the last round. He's sitting in the clubhouse." I was like, "Okay." So that kind of changed your attitude. So I parred 15. 16 was a par five with an island green, which I had decided in practice rounds that unless I had a very, very friendly number, that I was going to lay up each day and hit a wedge shot, my third shot. But I did have a go mark in the fairway, and I hit a really good drive on 16 and got past my go mark. I said, "Well, I got to make something happen." So I went for it, knocked on the green, two putted, made birdie. I was one back. 17 was a par three coming back the other way, also an island green, as it turns out, and I hit it to a foot and made birdie there. So now I'm even. And 18 was a really tough par four that kind of dogleg left about 430, which then was a long par four. It's not a long par four anymore. And I hit a really good drive that took a kind of a funny bounce, kicked right, but I thought I was fine. I get up to the ball and it had just trickled into the right rough, and there was a tree limb overhanging that was kind of blocking a direct route. And I didn't have a great lie. I couldn't get a line on it, so I hit a little cut shot up right in front of the green. I pitched up to about 5 feet, and it's hard to describe this on a podcast, but I tell you, I hit a 5 footer straight up the hill. That a third of the ball was over the cup, fringe of the cup, and it didn't drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could see that. I mean, I tell the story today, and I can still see it. It's not something I like to revisit a lot, to tell you the truth. Um, and in the third round, there was a rain delay, and the tournament committee decided it was going to be a minimum of a 2 hour rain delay because it was really pouring, and the golf course was in the water. And coach took three players and went to a Burger King about 2 miles down the road, and almost almost after you left, not quite after you left, but just after you left, I stayed, and another player on my team stayed, and they go, we're gonna resume play in 30 minutes. I said, no, you just told us 2 hours and coach left the campus. We're gonna resume in 30 minutes. Anyway, it turns out that he came back and they had just started play, and the guys rushed to the holes, and the tournament committee penalized each guy 2 shots.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's a kind of an untold story. And we lost that national championship by 3 shots.
wow.
And in my opinion, the guys on the committee that year, who shall go unnamed, weren't really big fans of my golf coach. They weren't very friendly, and I think they put the screws to him with what they basically did. So we had a lot of motivation, if you want to ask, the next year.
No
Um,
kidding.
in my case, you wonder if you're ever going to get a chance to be in that position again. Um, and obviously, I was again, and I was able to pull it out. The funny thing about the way we won that golf tournament, you looked up, you said we won by 36 shots. I thought we had won by 33. But anyway, either way, after the first round, we were 9 shots behind. So
Wow.
if your numbers are right at 36, that means we made up 45 shots in 3 rounds. So I would call that being pretty motivated.
I'd say
Yeah,
so.
yeah, we were pretty pissed off. Actually, I won, and then my teammates finished third, fifth, seventh, and 11th, I think, in the tournament. So nobody finished out of the top 12 individually.
That's strong.
Yeah, it was fun, and we made it a point to make sure those people in that committee from the year before, we thanked them so much for their support.
I bet you did.
Yeah, we did actually.
That 81 national championship, I believe, Tom, was held just outside of Hartford, Connecticut.
It
And
was.
you were paired with Rocco Media, right? Who at the time was playing for California University, who had later transferred to Florida Southern.
No,
Is that right?
slight correction. I wasn't paired with him, but and I don't remember. Rocco tells me this story, and I don't remember this at all. Rocco said that during one of the rounds, I was in a morning wave and he was in an afternoon wave, or vice versa. And he came out and watched me play a couple of holes. And I don't know why he watched me, but he actually wrote this in his book too. It's the book he wrote about the situation at Troy Pine Tiger. In one of the chapters, he talks about the reason he transferred to Florida Southern was the way we played as a team and the way I played as an individual. And it's in the book. And I don't remember that. And then he made a visit to Florida Southern to transfer, when he made a school visit. And he claims that I showed him around campus, and I don't remember that either. I really don't. But he writes this in the book that it was the influence of watching me play and watching the team play at outside of Hartford, and then the trip down to Florida Southern, his recruiting trip, that I was the reason he transferred in there. So if that's true, great. I'm happy to do it, but I don't remember it that way, and we're still good friends today. And he swears that that's what happened. So okay, I believe you, Rock. Whatever you say.
You mentioned Andy Bean a moment ago, and we recently lost him. He lived in Lakeland, Florida, played his college golf, as you mentioned, at the University of Florida. You guys played a lot of golf together. Talk about who Andy Bean was.
So Andy Bean in 1980 and 81, when I was in Lakeland at Florida Southern, was at the peak of his career. I mean, he was a top 10 player in the world. He was a big, imposing figure, a big, aggressive guy. Hit it a mile back in those days for that time in the golf history game. And also in town at the same time was Buddy Alexander, who went on to become the coach at Florida because he was playing and trying to qualify for the tour, former Walker Cup player, and later become a U.S. amateur champion. So Andy, I, and Buddy, and a fellow named Tom Glayton, who played at Florida Southern, who graduated before me, who had won the first individual national championship for Florida Southern, went on to get his tour card. We all played a lot of golf together. Andy and Buddy are two of the most competitive human beings on the face of the planet. If you knew either one of them, Buddy is now retired from the University of Florida as the assistant golf coach now in retirement at Auburn. And actually, I spoke to him on the phone coming back from Florida Southern today. But playing with those guys that were older than me and tour quality players was invaluable. And Andy was the kind of guy that didn't not that any of us did, but didn't like to lose, and made it very well known that he didn't like to lose, and didn't care if you had $5 in your pocket as a college player and that didn't have a pot to piss in, or you had $1 million in your pocket. If you had a match and you lost, you were paying. And I like that. I mean, as many times as he beat my brains in, I enjoyed every second of it. And he was also, on the other side of his personality, happy to help you and give you advice. And if you hit the wrong shot at the wrong time, explain why it was the wrong shot and what you should try to do to play the shot differently. And coming from a world-class player like that, you couldn't put a price tag on it. I liked him a lot. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. He was a very aggressive dude, and a very imposing figure. But what a great experience it was for me as a 21-year-old to be around guys like that every day.
Tom, you've worked with a lot of junior golfers who have dreams of playing college golf like that. And for kids who are in the process of being recruited, what's some advice that you'd give to them and or their parents about things that they should be aware of during that recruiting process?
Well, let's do the negatives first. I've seen too many college coaches make promises they can't keep. So, in a lot of cases, understand that some coaches speak with forked tongue. You know, so um, be careful with that. Um, the second thing that they're doing now, a lot of these kids, is they're paying for these recruiting services that are going to put them online. And a lot of these recruiting services are really overpriced and underdelivered. Um, I don't think you need that. I think if you have a resume and you've had you made some good, you have some good accomplishments. You put those accomplishments on paper, and do a video of your golf swing and write a nice cover letter that makes you not sound like a complete idiot, and send it, and follow up with a phone call or a school visit. You can get it done without spending a lot of money on the recruiting process. Now, some of these are really good services, but there's a million of them. And how do you know which one to choose? Um, and I think that, when I talk to my own kids, everybody has a dream of playing on the PGA Tour. And the truth of the matter, Chris, as you and I both know, is that the percentage of guys who are going to go to college that are all good players. They're going to play D1, D2 golf, and they're really good players. The percentage of those guys that are going to go and play on tour is so small, and the odds are so much against you. I always tell guys, make sure you have a plan B. I know your plan A is to play the tour. Make sure you have a really good plan B, whether it's graduate school or a career in mind, or you're working towards something. And when I sit down with my kids and their parents, my priorities are listed very carefully to them in this order. Go get a great education at a great school. Go somewhere where you're going to socially fit in and be comfortable. And number three, find a place where you can play golf and be competitive. And they go, no, I want to put golf as number one. I said, no, golf's not number one. Golf's number three. Your education is first. Do you socially fit in? Okay, is it someplace you're going to be comfortable? And number three, is it a good golf program for you? And do you fit into that program? I think that these kids have their priorities, and often the parents have their priorities upside down and backwards. I want to make sure that you leave there in 4 years with a degree, and it's a degree that means something. It's not basket weaving. It's not pie in the sky. It's something that you can use in your life to be successful with, and you've accomplished something. You and I both know how hard and how cruel the real world is, and how cruel corporate America is. And so many of these kids have a plan A that doesn't come true, and then plan B has zero preparation that went into it, and then all of a sudden they're lost. And I don't let that happen to my kids at all, ever.
What about if a coach comes to visit the kid and their parents and has comes to the front door, rings the doorbell, they were expecting the visit, now wants to sit down and have a chat? Are there some things that the parents and the kid need to be aware of, like say this but don't say that?
Well, I think that first of all, it's not like basketball or football. They don't come to the house. Now they're seeing kids at AJJ events or FJT events, or a local tournament or state championship. That's where they see them, and they make an arrangement to sit down, have lunch or dinner at an event like that. So I think that it's funny, Chris, you say this because again, on the way back from Lakeland today, Florida Southern, I was making phone calls. I was getting phone calls, and one of the phone calls came from a kid that I'm working with now, we can't use his name right now, but he's a nice young player, and he's really starting to blossom. He's kind of a late bloomer, but he's done some really good things in the last 90 days, say. Really kind of turned the corner suddenly and really shooting some good scores. Actually played an event a week ago and shot 66. I mean, the kid can play, but he's a late bloomer. He's really on very few radar screens, and he really wants to play college golf. And he did one of his first college visits today. And he did it to a place that he could definitely play at. I mean, he would definitely start there, in my opinion, as a freshman. It's an okay school, but it's his first visit. So he calls me on the way back, and we're actually both driving on I-75 at the time. He's in the car with his parents. He's like, "Oh, the visit was great, blah, blah, blah. I think I'd really like to go there." I said, "Dude, it's your first visit. Okay. You're going to make 6 visits to 6 schools we picked. It's your first visit." He goes, "Well, yeah, but I think it'd fit in there." I said, "It's your first visit. You didn't commit to anything, did you? I told you not to." "No, I didn't, but I think I should." I said, "No, you're going to take all 6 visits, and then we're going to sit down and talk about the pluses and minuses of each place and all the promises that were made. And we're going to discuss how many of the promises are real and can really be delivered. And then you're going to make a decision." They get excited. They get excited because somebody pays attention to them, and they really want to play somewhere so bad. And I see kids, not my kids, thank goodness, but I see kids jumping the gun sometimes and making a commitment to go there. And all of a sudden it's the end of the first semester and they want to transfer. And now it's easy to transfer with the portal. It's easy to transfer, but again, it's like you're starting all over someplace else again. And if you were a little more patient, we talked about patience today, didn't we, Chris?
Indeed, we
And
did.
and a little more patient, and you put all the facts on the table at the end of your X number of visits, and you sit down with somebody who's been through it about 55,000 times with kids, you can make better decisions. I've had 125 kids in my career play college golf. So I've heard all the promises, I've heard all the bullshit, and I've heard all the truth, and I can kind of see through a lot of these things. And I know a lot of these coaches too. I have relationships with a lot of them. So I say to them, "Listen, you're not paying me for the service. You're not paying a recruiting service. You're paying somebody who knows these people you're talking to. Let's sit down at the end of 6 visits or 4 visits, whatever it is, and let's really weigh all the pros and cons and where you'll be happiest and be most successful."
All right, Tom, one more before I let you go, and I want to switch gears.
Go, man.
The last time we talked on the show about the new TGL League that Tiger and Rory are starting in January. Well, Tiger has another joint venture currently with Justin Timberlake, and they've started a new restaurant and sports bar, and they want to open one in the town of St. Andrews. But the residents not so excited about that idea. They're saying it's going to be a place for rich American tourists to go, and it's going to strip away the vital part of the town's identity and history. So what do you make of the folks at St. Andrews shooting down Tiger and Justin and their new sports bar idea?
Chris, I'd have to support him 100%. I've been to St. Andrews, let me think of it, on 3 different occasions. Would you let Tiger and Justin put a sports bar in the Vatican?
Interesting.
Yeah, not
No.
quite, right?
No.
I mean, I can go down the list of places I wouldn't want to put a sports bar based on history and purity of history. And to me, the first time I went to St. Andrews, Chris, when I walked on the first tee, I started crying. So that's what it meant to me. Um, it's it's as it always has been. It's as it always should be, and always will be, hopefully. And listen, I have nothing against just Timberlake or Tiger Woods opening a sports bar, not in St. Andrews. I think we talked about this a little bit off air. I don't think there's a McDonald's in St. Andrews. I mean, it's the little local pub, it's the great B&B, it's the cobblestone streets, it's the graveyard across town in back of the University of St. Andrews where old Tom and young Tom and Allen Robinson are buried. And if you don't know who Allen Robinson, he's the first keeper of the green of St. Andrews, and who trained old Tom Morris. That's where we're going back here to history in St. Andrews. So to me, that's hallowed ground. That's as a person who is in love with my game, our game, the people's game. That's the Vatican. St. Andrews is the Vatican. Um, and and you know how we both feel about Augusta National. It's not even close. St. Andrews is the Vatican. Augusta is a local rectory. Okay. And that's how I compare the two. And do we love Augusta? You and I both love Augusta. And Augusta in American golf may be, a cathedral, but it's not the Vatican. And to have an American sports bar in St. Andrews, no, I'm sorry. I don't see it myself. So thank you.
Tom, before I let you go, remind everyone again, how can they follow you on Instagram? How can they find you at Twin Eagles? And how can they get online with you?
Well, all the regular things, like you said, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. No Twitter anymore, pardon me. Facebook, 2 pages on Facebook. The website is just tompatri.com and Twin Eagles in North Naples. But all my personal contact information is on the website at tompatri.com. And 85 shows, Chris. 85 shows. 85 shows you put up with my nonsense.
What is wrong with me?
85 shows you've listened to my real nonsense. I mean, nonsense. And how many shows have you done overall, Chris? How many have you done?
Oh, I really don't know the number right off the top of my head. I think the last time I looked, it was 756. I'm sure it's north of that now.
So 756 times, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Mascaro has come to the air 110% prepared. He's entertained some of the best teachers on the planet, some of the best players on the planet, some of the best industry leaders on the planet. The show has won countless awards, all well-deserved, and the guy is simply the best at what he does. Every single week, he's ready to go. And for somebody like me, who's just a knucklehead that teaches backswings, to be able to have a platform to talk about all the nonsense I talk about, and I'm given that platform by Chris Mascaro, I am pretty blessed. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, I'm the one who's truly blessed to have someone great like you.
No, sir. No, sir. You got it backwards. And you know what, Chris? You're outnumbered in that thought process, 500 to 1 by every single guest that comes on your show, many of whom I know really well, and we all feel the same way.
Well, that means a great deal to me, TP. Thank you for that, my friend. Have a great night. We'll catch up in a couple of weeks. And Tom Purtzer's, yep.
Tell Purtzer I said hi.
I will absolutely do that. I'm sure he's listening right now.
Okay, bud.
Take care, TP. We'll catch up again in a couple of weeks.
Bye, pal. You're the best.
Thank you, Tom. That is the great Tom Patri. He's the best, by the way, and just a wonderful human being and one of the top coaches in the history of this game. Be sure to go out there on tompatri.com. Check him out there. Follow him on Instagram. Go get those free lessons on his YouTube channel. They just don't come better than that guy. One other thing about Tom and I, we've been working with a company called Kickpoint, and they have done some magical things with our logos and created some polo shirts with some wonderful designs where they take our logos and turn them into designs on a polo shirt. They're absolutely outstanding. Kickpoint Golf is a private label custom golf apparel company making bespoke polo shirts, quarter zips, and hoodies for those selected clubs looking to take their branded game to a whole new level. If you want to check out their apparel, and again, it's going to knock your socks off, send an email to info@kickpointgolf.com. They'll get right back to you. There's no middleman. They're going to go right to the guys that do this work. You're going to check it out, and you are really going to love what they do. I'm going to start showing the polo shirts that they designed for me on my Instagram at CT Mascaro. Check them out there so you can get a sample of what they look like. These guys know where it's at. Okay, like you heard a moment ago, coming up next is going to be PGA Tour legend Tom Purtzer. Before I get to Tom, I was talking with Eddie Dry, VP of Domestic Sales for Strixon Cleveland Golf, at the PGA Merchandise Show earlier this year, and I said, Eddie, I like your CBX full-face wedges. How can they help an average player like me play better? Here's what he had to say.
An average player, I use one, and I'm in some lies that you can't even believe. And I need all the help I can get. And the face is bigger, and the grooves go all the way up and all the way out to the toe. So if you hit it on the toe, you miss it, bam, there's a groove. So I like that. So I carry a 58.
There you have it, folks. Try the new CBX full-face wedges from Cleveland Golf. I want to tell you about something else I saw at the PGA Merchandise Show, and that's me and my golf. And how does a 45-day free trial to Arccos sound? Well, me and my golf have partnered with Arccos and are offering 14 free sensors and a 45-day free trial to Arccos Caddy when you purchase any training aid on shop.meandmygolf.com. This is a limited time offer, so don't miss out. Again, go online to shop.meandmygolf.com. With many years in the business, menswear brand Construct has finally launched its green golf collection, sustainably produced using renewable solar energy and recycled fabrics. Hit your best shot in their performance-enhancing polos, quarter zips, and bottoms. Made with 4-way stretch, quick dry, and UV 50+ protection. From solids to bold, eye-catching designs, Construct Green is the perfect piece for making the best memories on the greens. And the best part? You can head to construct.com, and that's CONXSTRUCT.com, and use code Chris for 20% off the green collection today. Now back and next on the tee with me is PGA Tour legend Tom Purtzer. I'm so blessed to say that Tom has become a wonderful friend over the last few years. It's always so much fun when he's a part of the show. Let me remind you a little bit about his background. Played his college golf at Arizona State from 1970 to 73. He won the Arizona Collegiate Tournament twice in 1971 and 73. He won the Southwest Open in 1972. In 1973, he won the Broadmoor Men's Invitational and was named a second-team All-American. In 1989, he was inducted into the Sun Devil Hall of Fame. He turned pro in 1973, got his first win on the PGA Tour at the 1977 Glen Campbell Los Angeles Open, and he did so by one stroke over Lanny Watkins. Over the course of his playing career, Tom won 5 times on the PGA Tour, 4 more times on the Champions Tour. One of the many great things about his PGA Tour wins is they came over the course of 3 different decades. He won tournaments in 1977, 84, 88, and 1991. In all, he won 15 professional events. And as most of you know, Tom has always been known for having one of the sweetest swings in tour history. And I couldn't be more delighted that I get to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Tom, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing good, as far as I know. I do have to echo exactly what Tom said when he finished up. You're the best.
Well, I appreciate you saying that very much. It means a great deal to me. Tom, before we get into all the golf stuff, I know you're out there in Arizona. You're an Arizona guy. Your Diamondbacks are down 3-1 in the World Series. Can they pull it off?
Well, that remains to be seen, but I think they can. I think they'll win today, and then we'll see what happens the next 2 games. They've, for where they started the year, I mean, they had a good beginning of the year, then they kind of plateaued off a little bit. But for them to be in the World Series is huge. I think Tony's done a great job managing this year, and I just hope they win today, and then we'll see what happens.
Tom, I want to go back to the last point I made in your intro about you winning tournaments in 3 different decades. One of the marks of greatness is longevity, and you certainly had that, winning over nearly a 15-year span. What do you attribute that to? Was it your sweet swing? What was it?
Well, I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. I mean, and I didn't really, I was healthy until 1992. But before that, I was healthy. I really never had a health issue or a, bad back or anything. But so I think that was part of it. And I think part of that being healthy and not having issues with my back is that I had a swing that was it wasn't tax. It didn't tax my body. I know I see some swings and where they have guys have had bad backs and wrists and issues like that. And I think that's partly attributed to their swings. And so to answer your question, I think that was a big part of it. That my swing was pretty good, and it didn't put a tax on my body, so to speak. But the times I won were the times that I putted halfway decent, so that was kind of helped. But I had a lot of opportunities, and only winning 5 times, my percentages wasn't that good.
One of the wins I didn't mention in your intro was at the Japan versus USA golf matches in 1979. And you won that event by 10 strokes over Bill Rogers. So many great legends in our game won that event. Players like Isao Aoki, Tom Watson, Jerry Pate, Bobby Clampett, Curtis Strange, just to name a few. What do you recall about going over there and winning that event?
Well, that was the first time that I'd really ever gotten outside of college. But being on tour, that was the first time I ever played kind of as a team. And so I was, when you're playing with a team and that representing the country and stuff, I wanted to play good for my guys on my team. That was huge to me, that I could play as good as I did. But it was huge to me. It gave me a good mental boost to know that, because I think part of my reason that I didn't win more times than I did was I didn't really this doesn't sound right, but I didn't really believe in myself. This was kind of before sports psychologists and stuff, and I wasn't sure mentally that I should have been there, that I should have. I just didn't think that I was as good a player as a lot of guys. So I think that kind of hurt. But going over there and playing with those, on that team, and there were a bunch of good players on both sides of that team. So that kind of gave me a little confidence. That it was just fun, and it was on a good golf course, and being in a foreign country made it a little extra special.
The other day I tweeted out that it was the anniversary of Arnold Palmer's last appearance in the Sahara Invitational in 1973. He finished tied for 20th and earned the hefty sum of $1,338.86, and people couldn't believe how little he got paid. And when I look at you, and you won the Glenn Campbell Open in 77, the winning paycheck was $40,000, and guys are getting that now for finishing in 40th place. Guys who win are getting $1.5 million on a low end. Did you think you were rich in 77 when they handed you a $40,000 check?
Well, compared to what Arnold and those guys were playing for, yeah. I mean, we felt like we were making a ton. I remember when Jimmy Colbert started his tournament in Las Vegas, and he goes, "Guys, we're going to play for $1 million." And I mean, nobody could believe it. But yeah, the scary thing is, I don't know what, 82, I think I finished, I don't know, 3rd or 4th in the British Open, and I won $11,000. So, and that barely covered your expenses for the week. So yeah, things have changed. I'm happy for the guys, the guys that are playing now. It's great to see how much they're making these days.
The Players' Championship wasn't always played at the stadium course at TPC Sawgrass. It was played on different courses until they settled there in 82. But was Pete Dye's design, particularly the Island Green on 17, was that a new idea at the time, or had you guys played courses with Island Greens before that?
No, that's really the only Island Green that I know of playing in professional tournaments, for me anyway. I'm not sure that I remember another. For sure, it was the first one. And I don't know that I've played too many of them since. I know a lot of courses have kind of tried to copy, but I don't know that we've played very many of those on tour. But yeah, the tournament players, that's always been a great. We played, I think, at Sawgrass Country Club, and I'm the weather that we had when we played there. I think the golf course was harder than TPC because there were some brutal holes on that golf course. But yeah, Pete did a masterful job. It was so hard that he I think he had to come back in and redo most of the greens because they were so severe. And around the greens, I don't necessarily mean so much the greens, but around the greens, the bunkers, the sand, grass bunkers and all that stuff. They were brutal. I think that's why Dave Pell's kind of invented the 60-degree wedge, 63-degree wedge, whatever. But yeah, it was so difficult. When you missed a green there, you were busy.
Do you remember going around that course the first time and coming up to the 17th tee and seeing that Island Green?
Oh yeah. And I never had a problem with it until I hit one in the water. and that was about. I don't think I hit one in the water for, I don't know, 8-10 years, and then all of a sudden you hit one in the water, and then every time you got up there you go, whoa, wait, okay, let's see, let me just get it right in the middle of the screen. But it's a daunting task to you could throw it on the green really, and it's just it comes the next to last hole in your round most of the time, and it's a great little finishing hole. I mean, you wouldn't think that it would pucker you up, but boy, it sure does.
You frequently played well in Jack's tournament, at the Memorial, and Arnold Palmer's tournament there at Bay Hill. Several top 10s, top 25s in both of those events. Was there an extra push to play well in those tournaments for you because it was in front of Jack and Arnold?
Absolutely. Byron Nelson, same thing. When I think Memorial was probably my, I loved Colonial. I got to sit with Ben Hogan one night at the Champions Dinner, which was really cool. But anytime you play with, or anytime you're in those guys' presence, Arnold. I remember the first time I walked into the clubhouse at Bay Hill, and I had my hat still on, and I walk in, and the first guy I see was Arnold, and he fingered me out, he said, "Come here, son," and he goes, "We don't wear hats in the clubhouse," and that was the last time that I ever did that. But I mean, you just stuff like that. It just, I grew up, at dusk every day, trying to beat one of those guys in a putt off on the 18th hole at some tournament, and then to all of a sudden you're playing at their event. It was special. I think Memorial probably was my favorite, and I think it was basically because of Jack.
You mentioned sitting with Ben Hogan at the Champions Dinner. What was that like?
He was. I only met him, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. He couldn't have been a nicer human being. Very, proper. Just, he was a consummate golf professional, in my view. He talked to me, and he said some really nice things about my swing and all that stuff, and having that said to you from somebody like a Ben Hogan it's awe. I was just in awe, and like I said, it couldn't have been nicer. And that was, I'll never forget that. That's one of those things that, there's a lot of cool things that happen to us on tour, and that sticks out in my mind as one of the premier events of tour. Just being able to, sit next to him and talk to him and listen to him, really.
Tiger and Rory are about to start up a new venture called the TGL League, which is essentially team video simulation golf. It's supposed to be televised starting in January. Is that something you've got any interest in checking out?
I think I'd like to watch it. Yeah. Anything Tiger does, I think, and all those guys that are in part of that process, I like. I like all the young guys on tour. They all seem like they're really, really good guys, and I think they have a respect for the game. And it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know much about it, so I don't know whether I'm the right guy to ask. But it's one of those deals where I'll watch it and just kind of check it out and see. I think anything that those guys do, I think they're gonna put their best foot forward. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
Tom, one of the things that Tom Patri and I discussed a couple of weeks ago is how much fun it would be to watch today's players, speaking of the guys out there now, play in a tournament using the old Persimmon Woods, blade irons, and Bellata golf balls. I'd love to see how they'd perform using the equipment that you guys played with. What do you think about that idea?
I'm not sure they'd like that. It's and all these guys are so good that they wouldn't have an issue switching back and forth to that. But I think that would be a wonderful idea. I think it'd cause a lot of interest, and it would be really fun to watch. All of a sudden you got to hit it in the middle of those club faces all the time, and I think it would be interesting. I know. Guys would, the best guys would still be the best guys. But I think it would be a great idea if somebody could come up with, with a tournament like that. I'm not sure how many guys you would get to be interested in playing in it, but yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. I think it would show. I think it would have these young fellows would have an appreciation of what Jack and Arnold and Ben Hogan and Sam Snead and Byron Nelson, what those guys played with, and just to see the difference.
Well, speaking of the difference, one of the things that Tom and I both shook our heads about, if you go back and you look at the old 4 woods and the 5 woods, and you put a golf ball down, I mean, the size of the head of a 4 wood or a 5 wood was barely bigger than the golf ball. It sometimes I look back at that stuff and think, how in the world did we ever hit the golf ball with one of those woods?
Chris, no. I mean, I've taken out my old Tony Penna driver. I still have it, and I put it behind. I put it behind the golf ball, and it looks like the head of my Tony Penna driver is smaller than the golf ball. It's just it's I know it's an optical thing, but it's incredible the stuff that we played with, and it put such a premium on hitting at the middle of the club face. If you hit it toe side or heel side, it really cost you, distance and accuracy. But it's scary when you put like you said, a 4 wood or 3 wood, 4 wood, 5 wood behind the ball. Looks like the ball definitely is bigger than the head.
Tom, one more before I let you go, and you're a great teacher of the game now. It's about to get pretty darn cold in the states outside of Arizona, Florida, and Southern California. Do you have a tip for us? How do we make sure that our swings don't get completely rusty over the course of the winter?
I think the thing that I see in especially when you get older and when you're not able to, to play or practice, I think you've got to stretch. I think you've got to keep going, keep your body moving, do some calisthenics, some exercises, yoga, just anything that you can keep your body moving. I think what happens is, you get stuck not doing much because of the weather, and all of a sudden, the turn to me is the key to a good golf swing. If you don't get behind the ball, if you don't get turned behind the ball on your backswing, you're swimming upstream. It's just so important, and I noticed that especially the older I'm getting, the harder it is to make a turn going back, and it's huge. So, I think, just if you can, if you're able to just hit golf balls into a net or anything, just to keep moving, and to make sure that you're able to, turn your body away from the ball, so that you can make that forward swing. But yeah, I mean, I just think, if you can, and you can, and I think I can't emphasize enough to do some mental, a lot of times you can mentally, make swings and get feels and stuff like that. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff you can do. But for me, it's basically keep your body moving, make sure that you can stretch and because the turn is, I think, the key to a golf swing.
Tom, how can our listeners stay up to date with all the great things you're doing now and follow you, whether it's online or it's on social media?
Well, I'm on Facebook. That's pretty easy. I'm just starting. I'm still doing some teaching, but I just got my real estate license, so I'm trying to get into that market a little bit and sell some houses here in the beautiful city of Scottsdale, Arizona.
Very nice. Tom, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. You talk about someone saying nice things and just being in awe of them. Well, you've said an awful lot of nice things about me, and I'm just in awe that Tom Purtzer knows my name, let alone to say nice things. So it means a great deal to me, as do you. So thank you so much for being here and all you've meant to me in the show over the years.
Oh, Chris, it's my pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for having me on. I really appreciate you having me on. And like I said, like Tom said, nobody knows this job better than you. You do your homework, and it shows. And like Tom said, all of the professionals, all the people that you have on here feel the same way.
Well, I appreciate that again so very much. Tom, take care, my friend. The best of luck to you and to your Diamondbacks. I hope we get the privilege of doing this again soon.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
See you, Tom.
Bye-bye.
That is the great Tom Purtzer, folks. I am always in awe when I know Tom Purtzer is about to be a guest on the show. A great player like Tom was. Now, let's take a step back. Tom is an outstanding person. That's number one. And I think that came through the course of the conversation and the many times he has been a part of the show. He was a great player, but he's a 10 times better person than he was a player. And like I say, you don't win 15 professional events and do it over the course of 3 decades without being a great player. So I can't thank Tom enough. He means a great deal to me on a personal level. Like I say, he's been a wonderful guest, and now he's an even better friend. So I look forward to the next time we have the privilege of having him back as a guest on the show, and I hope that time is very, very soon. Coming up next is going to be the head golf professional at the Pittsburgh Field Club and another wonderful friend of the show, Chris Sheehan. Before I get to Chris, I want to remind you about 2 Under men's performance wear. They're the unofficial underwear of the PGA and the 2020 Ryder Cup team. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, like David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Use code NXTONTEE20, so next on T20, to save 20% at checkout. So go to 2under.com, that's a number 2, UNDR.com, 2 Under, performance in your pants. And you walk a lot of miles in life and on the course, so make sure you're walking in the right shoes. Skoni changes the game with an affordable line of the most comfortable, versatile, slip-on golf shoes that can be worn anywhere. They're made with breathable microfiber fabric, spikeless treads, and an adjustable lace lock. And they're easy to clean, too.
So spend less time changing shoes and more time living in them. Visit Skony.com and use code NXTONT20. So next on T20 at checkout for 20% off. That's Skony.com, SKONI.com. They're also available at golf specialty retailers and green grass pro shops nationwide.
Relax. Easy now. Find your happy place. It's all in the hips. Just tap it in. Yes!
Find the latest clubs and apparel at Golf's Happy Place, the PGA Tour Superstore.
All right, now back and making his 7th appearance with me here on Next on the Tee is Chris Sheehan. Let me give you some background on Chris. He is from Warwick, Rhode Island. He attended Trinity College over in Hartford, Connecticut, where he was the captain of the baseball and hockey teams. He was an All-Region and All-American nominee in both sports. In golf, Chris won the 2003 Western New York PGA Section Assistant Professional Championship, and he tied for 38th at the TaylorMade Adidas National Assistant Professional Championship that same year. He spent 6 seasons working along 3 of Golf Digest's top 100 instructors, including Bill and Craig Harmon, plus Todd Stones. In 2009, Chris was the PGA South Florida Section's Private Club Merchandiser of the Year. He won the South Florida Section Southwest Chapter PGA Bill Strasbaugh Award in 2015. The following year, he was named the South Florida Section Southwest Chapter PGA Professional of the Year. He has worked at clubs like Oak Hill, Inverness, and Lebanon Country Club, to name just a few. He is now the head golf professional at the Pittsburgh Field Club, and I'm excited I get to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Chris, thanks for coming back on the show.
Oh, absolutely, Chris. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
So, Chris, it's been about a year since I got to have you as part of the show. Catch us up. What's been going on with you?
Finishing up a tremendous third season at Field Club, and club is booming, and our membership is full, and the events are massively participated in, and a little bit of had a hip replaced in March.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, I'm getting old, and and then got through that and was a little delayed, but got through that, and then had a little elbow problem in the middle of the season, got through that, and then my mom unfortunately passed in September, so got through that. So I'm looking forward to a little bit of a winter rest, and
no doubt.
But it's just been a tremendous season. I'm blessed to be the golf professional at Pittsburgh Field Club. It's as great as the place is, the membership is even greater. And we're going to quiet down. We had our first snowfall this morning, so we'll take a.
Is that right?
Yeah, we'll take a few weeks to get the staff recharged, and then we'll just start getting ready for next year.
All right, so I want to go back in your career because you got your start in the golf industry, as I recall, back in 1997, working at Fisher's Island in New York. Is that right?
Yeah, my father was a boys parochial principal, and he hired a math teacher who became the general manager at a 9-hole place on Fisher's Island called the Hay Harbor Club, which people around golf say it's the closest thing to Ballybunion you'll ever see in your life. And so I worked for Mr. Duggan there, and the pro after the first year, his name was Gene Mulak, who had helped Billy Harmon during the '96 U.S. Amateur at Newport. He ran an ancillary merchandise store for Billy downtown Newport, and Billy said, "I'll pay you back someday." And in '97, when I was at Hay Harbor, or '98 maybe, when I was at Hay Harbor, Billy came to do a golf school, and I was the guy who picked him up off the boat, and I was the fetch boy and the guy who set up the school and picked up the balls and took care of the bunkers and took care of the players. And 2 days later, he was back in his car onto the boat, and he said, "Hey, you want to come to California?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to go." So that's how I got to meet Billy and went out west to work for him at Bighorn. And he sent me over to work for Craig at Oak Hill in 2001, 2, and 3, and then I ended up at Inverness and ended up in Florida for 15 years. Had some great success down in Florida, and got back up to Pittsburgh area. Not that I'm from here, but it was just something that I always thought I would be, having worked at Oak Hill and Inverness. I always wanted to be, a head golf professional at one of the historic clubs in the Northeast, and a couple of years later, here we are.
So let's talk about that, being there at Pittsburgh Field Club and the amazing history that that club has. Talk about what you learned about the history of that golf course since you've been there.
Well, in a little bit of irony too, your next guest is someone I've become friendly with in the past 4 months. But Field Club is in USGA databases the 10th oldest club in America, and we are approaching our 150th anniversary, and the club has reached a working arrangement with your next guest, David Moore, as he's the club historian at Oakmont. He's worked hard at Allegheny, and he does a lot of history, and he's a history junkie, and he's a golf historical junkie, and the club has an arrangement with him that he's going to help lead us into our 150th anniversary in 2032. So it was neat to see. David and I were emailing back and forth before I came on. It's just ironic that he and I are on the same night, because we've gotten to know each other, and it's when you try and track down history of a club that's 150 years old, it's a monumental task, and he certainly seems to be the right guy for the job, and we're excited to have him here and working with us, and just getting to see how he goes about collecting information and where you find stuff, and auction sites and finding trophies from 1911, and it's just something that he's passionate about, and he's good at it, and the club is blessed to have him moving forward. But the club, 1882. It was originally the Pittsburgh Cricket Club in 1871. But it in 1896, they built 3 holes using French pecans to play golf, and expanded to 5 holes in 1897 and 9 holes in 1901. And it's just an amazing place. It's just it's always been a place that's been about sports, and it's always been a place that's been about families. And it's something that I get to be the new steward for golf here, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, learning about the history of the club, embracing what David is the sort of the the magical ride that David's going to lead us on for the next 9 years leading up to the 150th anniversary. And having a PGA Championship in 1937 and the Western Open in 1959 with some great champions and some very very similar results to those tournaments, sort of last hole failures that ended up with people on the right side of history. But there's never a day when you work at the club that you don't see something that amazes you. You don't find a new historical perspective. Obviously, having tournaments here and trying to protect the history and traditions of the club, and also, as a golf professional in 2023, trying to add a little pep and pizzazz to some of the activities that we do, and creating new events and establishing new traditions is something that me and my team are passionate about. And we try and balance all that history and all the tradition with doing some modern things, and we've had some great success. Our events are really, really well supported, and the club is just doing fantastic.
Alexander Finley is the original designer of PSC, but since the club opened on the current property in 1915, several very famous other designers have been brought in to do modifications, like Tillinghast, Donald Ross, Robert Trent Jones, and Trip Davis. Talk about why so many legendary architects have come in and tinkered with the golf course.
Yeah, just an amazing lineage of folks that have helped this club along. Alex Finley built it in 1914, and legend has it that Ross did work in 1915. He changed basically the holes 2, 3, 4, and 5 right out of the gate. Tillinghast followed, Willie Park Jr., Trent Jones in 52. Arthur Hills was here to make some suggestions in 85. The longtime pro Emil Leffler, who was the pro and superintendent at Oakmont, had his hand in it. But as many golf courses try and stay relevant, there's always an amalgamation of help. And the Field Club has a proven history of people that helped it become what it has become over 142 years, with smart decisions and calculated decisions, with the eyes that they put on the facility and how they could make things better. And certainly, anyone can come in and make suggestions, but the club has to have the fortitude and the leadership to make decisions to make it better. And And I'll be honest, it's to be in this little corner of the world, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where you got Fox Chapel across the street, Oakmont's just across the river. They hosted the U.S. Amateur last year with Longview, which is across the river. You got 5 world-class facilities within probably 6 square miles of each other, and to have these massively historic clubs that have hosted so many great championships and have 4 different memberships survive that all within this little tiny circle of Pittsburgh is an amazing testament to how golf rich this city is, and how golf crazy these people are. So it's certainly a blessing to be part of Field Club, and we've got members, and it's become a common practice at the club in my 3 years that you've got members who have been here for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 50 years that just say that they have never seen the golf course in better shape. I ran into Eric Johnson this morning at the grocery store, and he said, man, his kid plays on the high school team, and he said, I have never seen it like that. It's an amazing club. It's an amazing golf course, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it.
It's interesting you mentioned Eric Johnson, because he's going to be back on the show with me again next week.
Good.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Talking about the shape of the golf course, Chris, and I watched some videos of the course, and the condition of it looks like it could host a big tournament really at a moment's notice. And a lot of the comments that people have written in the sections where the course is listed all talk about the great condition it's always in. Talk about maintaining that golf course to such high standards.
Yeah, I just, there's the green superintendent is Justin McKay. He was an assistant for about 10 years, promoted to that position, probably 4.5 years ago, about a year before I got here. And, to have that sort of 15-year knowledge of the facility, he knows every nook and cranny. He knows, when things change color, he knows when things change moisture. He just has the eye for it. And, the membership has certainly, having been to the Greens Committee meetings and the Golf Committee meetings, they understand that, above all, the golf course is, other than the membership, the golf course is the primary asset of the club. And if the golf course isn't very good, then, you wouldn't really have a club. So the membership supports that endeavor, both spiritually and financially. And they allow Justin to and his team. He's got a tremendous group that work with him, and they allow him to do his work. They listen to him. He's got tremendous intuition with regards to aerification and things of that nature. A little bit unlucky this week with aerification during frost, but they're working through it, and there's no doubt it's going to come out better than what it is. And it's just a great team effort between the membership and the staff about who they want to be, how good they want their golf course to be. They spent some time the last 3 years making it faster and firmer. It certainly paid dividends as far as playability goes for the membership. In the spring and fall, the greens are rolling 15, 14.
Wow.
It just gets to a point where it's in such good shape, and Mother Nature with the cool nights just takes over, and it just made it great. And it's improved it in the summertime, where typically it's been a little bit moist. He's doing multiple aerifications a year, almost 6 times a year, little aerifications to get some air underneath it and change out some soil. And it's really paying dividends after 3 years of work. And, all the credit is to Justin and his team and the club and the membership for supporting all of his efforts. And it's just been an unbelievably conditioned golf course. And I'm lucky because I worked at Oak Hill and Inverness, and I watched, the major at Oak Hill and the PGA at Oak Hill and the Senior Open at Inverness. So I know what great championship golf courses look like. And this is no different, if not better. And, we lack the yardage to host anything major with the gentlemen, but I really believe it would be a tremendous venue for a Solheim Cup. It has a lot of natural stadium seating. It has tremendous elevation changes, which is unique in this. It's unique for us compared to places like Fox Chapel and Oakmont. But it would be a tremendous venue, a beautiful clubhouse, that would be a tremendous spot for media, for the ladies. You pair it with, in the fall with maybe a Pirates game or a Steelers game, and you get the ladies on the field and introduce, Solheim Cup to a different dynamic of spectator. I just think this would be a perfect place for a Solheim Cup, and certainly the condition of the golf course could handle it. The ladies would love it, and the club, you're right, it deserves, and it certainly can hold anything at any point. It's always in that good of condition.
Chris, as I've watched videos of the golf course, it reminds me a little bit of Augusta National in that, like you mentioned, it's got a lot of elevation changes. Doesn't look like you can get into a lot of trouble off the tee. You've got some trees left and right. So it looks to me like Augusta National in that it is a second shot golf course, and you better be really good around the greens and on the greens. Is that fair, or am I off base on that?
I'd certainly agree that most folks that play it consider it a second shot golf course, and certainly around the greens. The greens are relatively small. And I've never been to Augusta. My thing with Augusta was I would always go if my brother made it and I'd caddy there. And then I would start going, but he never made it there, so I've never been. But I mean, over the years, because of, maintenance practices and trying to get the golf course to breathe a little bit and trying to keep the greens healthy, it obviously was a very tree-rich environment for a long time. So they've done a lot of tree removal over the past 15 years, which has really improved the condition of the golf course. It's really improved the condition of the green speeds. But yeah, elevation changes and uphill and downhill tee shots, uphill and downhill second shots, dog-leg tee shots that move left to right and right to left, long par threes, short par threes. It certainly has characteristics of Augusta that I know, that I've watched on TV for probably 40 years. I can't really say I've been there, can compare them in person, but if you're using elevation changes in a second shot golf course and the difficulty of the greens, the thing to remember about the field club is that, part of the golf course was built, original holes that still exist were built 100+ years ago, where the greens were running 6 or 7. We've got those same golf holes with the same greens and the same contours that are now running anywhere from 12 to 15 throughout the year. So we've lost a lot of our hole locations. We're going to modify 10 to be able to put some hole locations in the front left corner, because we can really only use the back right third of the green. They made some modifications to the 5th hole last year, so we could put a pin in the back right third of that green. So it's always a delicate balance where you're asking for capital dollars to keep your golf course relatively fair, because the conditions have really outpaced the design, which is what a lot of golf courses will go through when the funding is there and when the general interest is there to make your golf course as fast and firm and as well conditioned as it can be. Sometimes you can do that and outpace the design. So we're going to have to spend the next few years changing some of the greens and, probably moving some bunkers. But in general, it's a tremendous place to play. And it's, everybody says you never get sick of it. It never gets old. You can hit it left and right. You can still get out and get it up to the green. There's a lot of, holes where you can bump it into the greens. You can run it up to the greens. It's got just a lot of shot variety that a lot of golf courses, particularly modern golf courses, lack. But this golf course, which has stood the test of time for over 100 years, really offers a variety of shots that you need to be good at if you really want to score well here.
The 18th hole has an interesting story. The original design had it as a 277-yard par 4, but severely uphill. So uphill that during the summer, legend has it, that a couple of members died of a heart attack trying to climb it. So now it's a par 3 with an elevator to take players up to green level. Is that accurate?
It is. Yep. The 18th hole used to be a par 4 at 275 yards. It probably played closer to 425. But you hit a tee shot up a hill, and then you hit a second shot straight up a hill, and legend has it that there were some, whether it was on the golf course or in the clubhouse afterwards, that there were some fatalities from a little bit of heart failure. So they erected a long, long time ago. We're talking that might be in the late 20s or early 30s. They erected basically a 7-story, which is how tough the walk was going up 18, a 7-story elevator shaft that took you up when they redesigned the 18th hole to a par 3. You finish 17, you hop in a really claustrophobic elevator box. You climb up about 7 stories and you walk across about a 125-yard bridge, and then you find yourself upon the 18th hole, which can range anywhere from 220 yards to 150 yards. It's really a difficult par 3. It's a tremendous finishing hole. It's always had a lot of drama in the events that we've held here. But yeah, unique, certainly state of the art back in the 30s. And it's something that the members feel is one of almost a secondary logo for the club, because people that know and come and play, that's something that they really want to experience. Hopefully they don't get stuck, but it's just a tremendously cool thing that this club has embraced for 90 years or so.
Chris, just a couple more before I let you go. And you mentioned Fox Chapel earlier, which is almost literally right across the street. Is there a friendly competition between PFC and Fox Chapel with respect to playing conditions? And do you guys push each other to get to greater heights?
Yeah. I think when you're in a neighborhood that has Fox Chapel, Oakmont, and Longview, I think and not too far away Laurel Valley and not too far away Allegheny, there's always a competition to be as good as you can be, with all of them. One of the blessings here at Field Club is that they have a Ryder Cup match for both under 50 called the Diebold and over 50 called the McLaughlin Cup. That is Oakmont, Fox Chapel, Field Club, and Longview, and every year in July is the Diebold, and in September is the McLaughlin Cup. They play a 72-hole 3-day Ryder Cup match with singles, foursomes, better ball, and it's the Diebold is the best of the best. You always get Oakmont's college kids, and you see some tremendous play, and then you've got the McLaughlin Cup, which is the senior side of it, which is members at all 4 clubs that play the Diebold for 20 or 30 years, and the rivalry is there. Oakmont certainly has had the most success. They certainly have a wealth of good players, as do all the clubs, but they seem to always pull out as a victor in those competitions. And Fox Chapel and Field Club have their own little Ryder Cup called the FC Cup, and we do that earlier in the year. And there's competitive spirit. It's interesting because when you think about the players who participate, they've probably been playing against each other since they were kids. And some join Fox Chapel, some join Oakmont, some join Field Club, Longview, some join 2 or 3 of them at the same time. And it's something that I always pinch myself when I go to these tournaments and stand on the first tee and shake hands with all the players and know how much history is involved in these 2 match play events. The ladies have one for themselves. It's called the Abernethy Cup between the 4 clubs. So the 4 clubs in Pittsburgh here certainly embrace history and tradition, both on a competitive level in golf and on a competitive level with the conditions of their golf course and the environment you promote at your club. So it's certainly one of the things that you pinch yourself and think of, is there any other city in the world that has 4 clubs of the quality of the 4 we have here in Pittsburgh that has had a Ryder Cup style match for the women, the men, the male seniors, and the juniors for as long as they've done it? I'm not sure you could find anything on the globe that could challenge that.
Chris, before I let you go, remind our listeners, how can they stay up to date with all the things you're getting involved with, whether it's following you online or it's on social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at PFC PGA Pro, and we're on Instagram at PFC Golf 1882. Sometimes we broadcast Instagram Live our big events. I'm not an overly zealous social media poster, but we do have things for the members that we post that's private. We do have things that I like to post, whether it's my sports fandom or things of that nature. But Twitter and Instagram is where you could find me.
Chris, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come back and be a part of the show again tonight. You're always a treat to get to spend time with. I hope we get that privilege again sometime soon.
Absolutely, Chris. The real treat's being with you. As Tom said before me, everyone who works with you just raves about how great you are, prepared you are, and how excellent you are. And certainly, all the voting that's happening, all these podcast votes and things of that nature, and seeing you at the top is very well deserving. So thank you for including me, and I look forward to doing it again.
I appreciate that very much. Take care, Chris. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Chris. You as well.
See ya. That is Chris Sheehan, folks, a great friend of the show and a great friend on and off the air. Again, he's been a part of this show 7 times. I can't thank him enough for the great content that he has shared over the years as a part of this show. Give him a follow on X or Twitter, whatever we're calling that thing these days, at PFC PGA Pro. Go over to Instagram at PFC Golf 1882 to see what's going on at the Pittsburgh Field Club. I love the history that he shared with us about that fantastic place. I don't think enough people know how great the golf course is, how it's in such great shape, month after month, year after year, ready to hold a major event. And I love the idea of having the Solheim Cup there. How great would that be to have the Solheim Cup there right in downtown Pittsburgh? I mean, what a wonderful event that would be. I hope someone is listening and will take that and run with it. I'll certainly try to feed it to the folks over on the LPGA side that come on this show. But Chris is fantastic, folks. So much great history there in and around the golf courses in Pittsburgh. We heard about the wonderful competition amongst some of those great courses. We're going to get into a little bit more of the history that's available. You heard him talk about David Moore. David Moore is about to join me here on the show. Before I get to David, I want to remind you about our friends over at Squares Golf. And folks, do you sway and you're off balance in your golf swing? You know what? It could be your shoes. A golf shoe needs structure to provide stability and reduce sway. How can you tell if your shoes lack structure and are hurting your game? If you can hold your shoes by the toe and heel and twist it, toss it. Squares was designed for the perfect balance of structure and comfort. Isn't it time you tried Squares? Try the new Speedbolt at squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com. Looking for the ultimate Myrtle Beach golf experience? Well, it's only a click away. Check out the 2-play special at 2 of America's most awarded public golf courses, Caledonia Golf and Fish Club and True Blue Golf Club. They are low country masterpieces featuring 2 iconic Mike Strantz designs. Play these 2 incredible courses for one great price. Visit CaledoniaGolfandFishClub.com to learn more about the 2-play special and book your tee time today. Again, that's CaledoniaGolfandFishClub.com. Okay, now it's time to get to David Moore. He is joining me for the very first time here on Next on the Tee. He is the Curator of Collections at Oakmont Country Club and a part-time Curator of History at Allegheny Country Club as well. He also consults, as you just heard in the last segment, with our friends over at the Pittsburgh Field Club as well as over at Montclair Golf Club over in New Jersey. He earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in American History at Pitt and then his Master of Arts in Applied History over at the University of Massachusetts. And I'm very excited I get to have him with me tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, David, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So, David, as Chris Sheehan was just talking a few moments ago, you're helping them prep for the 150th anniversary of the Pittsburgh Field Club. That's got to be exciting work. What are some of the things you're starting to work on and look at as they prepare for that big event?
It is. It's a lot of fun. I've been very lucky here in the last, I've been very lucky overall, but in the last 18 months or so to get a chance to work with a lot of these great clubs out here in Western Pennsylvania and across the country. But when it comes strictly to the Field Club, I think it's one of the underrated clubs in the area. Like you guys said when Chris was on, Oakmont and Fox Chapel get a lot of the accolades when it comes to the golf courses in Pittsburgh. I think Allegheny is a great one that's underrated, and I think the Field Club is too. And when you look at the Field Club, you really do have a lot of history there, both locally, but also nationally. It was the host of the 1937 PGA Championship that Denny Shute won. It was the host of the 1959 Western Open that Mike Sochak won over Arnold Palmer. And I have to agree with Chris. I think it would be a perfect golf course for the ladies to play, whether it be a Solheim Cup or a U.S. Women's Open or some tournament of that repute. I think would be a great addition to the history at the Field Club. It's just it really is just a cool course. It's a cool club, and the history is just awesome. It really is one of the special places in our area.
David, I read you've always been kind of a history buff. When did that start to become a thing for you?
I grew up a history buff. When most kids were reading, Hunger Games and Harry Potter. Not that I didn't read those, but I was reading, Band of Brothers and things like that at 10, 11 years old. And I originally went to school to be a pharmacist, and it just didn't work out. And my dad suggested, you always liked history. Why don't you do that? And so that was the path I took. And I went, graduated from Pitt, and then I went to grad school in Boston and focused on public history and archiving, which is, when it comes to a history degree, there's not a whole lot of avenues. You either kind of go into teaching, you either go to law school, or you don't really use it. And I was pretty damn determined to use it. And I interned in a museum in my senior year at Pitt and just fell in love with that sort of work. And then when I graduated from UMass, I moved back out to Pittsburgh because I fell in love with the area during my time at Pitt. And I was just hoping for any sort of job in the history field in the museums. And it just so happened that one of the places I applied had a connection to Oakmont, and they put me in touch with their general manager at the time. His name was Paul Mraz. And, we went back and forth for a couple months. And then next thing I knew, I got a phone call in February to come in on Monday for a tour. And I was given the job that day. And it's been kind of, no looking back ever since. I've been incredibly blessed and lucky that, this is what I get to do for a living. If you would have told me that when I graduated from UMass, I'd be a golf historian and working for all these prestigious clubs, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But, reality is really sweet now.
So, David, the pictures and the items on display at Oakmont are just unbelievable. I was checking out some of the pictures that you've posted. Talk about, for those who haven't been privileged enough to get to walk around the clubhouse and the areas there at Oakmont, what would we see if we had that opportunity to tour around it?
You know what? Oakmont is really one of the top-notch clubs in the country, one of the top-notch clubs in the world. And when it comes to their history, it is so vitally important to the club. And it always has been. Championship golf is in the DNA of every single member that joins that club. And then the history of championship golf goes right along with it. So as soon as you walk in the front door at Oakmont, you would be greeted by the 4 USGA trophies, the 2 Havemeyers, and the 2 Open trophies for the men and the women. Each one of our display cases for the Opens features items from the tournament itself and the champions. Our U.S. amateur display is, I'm really proud of that one. We put that together ahead of the 2021 amateur with some really neat items and beautiful pictures that we came across over the years preceding that. And then right now we're kind of in the process of working on some other stuff, and we have a Wanamaker trophy coming, full replica, so we're excited about that. But when you walk into Oakmont, it's kind of, when I get to do tours for people, I tell them it's kind of like walking into Cooperstown or walking into Canton, Ohio, the Hall of Fame. You walk in and everything is just so beautifully and eloquently done and displayed. And you look at the names on the wall from Bobby Jones to Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, and then you think of the couple guys that didn't win there but came very close, and Tiger and Arnie Palmer and things like that. And it truly is a Hall of Fame, so to speak, in terms of the champions there, and and how we present and preserve their legacies, and the tournament history is really just kind of second to none out there, and we're just really proud of the work we get to do every day.
You guys have held some Oakmont history nights. Talk about what those are about.
That's been a new thing for us this year, and it's something that we're really hoping we're going to get to do now going further annually, maybe a couple times a year. Um, the disaster at Oakland Hills 2 years ago, for those that don't know, in February 2022, Oakland Hills' clubhouse tragically burned to the ground, and they lost some of their beautiful displays and things like that. And that really kind of opened the eyes up to all the historic clubs, that, hey, like, this could happen to us. We need to take steps to make sure that we're already taking these steps to preserve our history. That way we have it, but we need to do a better job of preserving it in case of tragedy. So the history nights at Oakmont actually grew out of that, because we got a brand new state of the art archive room this year. And what our first history night was to kind of open that up to the members, for them to come and see what we had and what we're doing, and what basically what their generosity in terms of budgeting was, what it gave us. And it doubled our space in terms of the size of the archive room. It gave us the space to work at and really kind of lay things out, which we didn't have before. And then the most important thing is everything is protected from fire, water, humidity, and things like that. Our room is about 12 hours waterproof and fireproof just in the construction of it. And the containers, like the filing cabinets and such that we use, are also fire rated, for another 8 to 10 hours. So our collection, barring some truly catastrophic event, is pretty safeguarded. And that was what our history night, our first one, started as. It's just a way to show the members of, this is what the club has done this year, and we're really proud of it. And then just a couple weeks ago, we did a more of a sit down history night in the clubhouse, and I told the story of how golf first comes to Pittsburgh, and then how Oakmont is really founded. And I think a lot of the members really enjoyed that, because they probably didn't know the early history, certainly of Pittsburgh golf, but probably not even the early history of the club. Besides, that Henry Phones founded it, and his son was instrumental in raising it up to national prominence. But we kind of went into the whole story of Oakmont, and in those first 25 years or so, and it got a really great reception. I was very proud of the work that our committee did, and them allowing me to go and tell these stories. And it's truly a special place. If you've never been there, certainly try to get to the next Open in 2025, and even just to walk around the golf course. And if you get a chance to get out there and play with a member, don't pass it up, even if it's a rainy or cold day. It's well worth the trip.
All right, so now you've got us intrigued. Is there some of the stories that you've shared about the first 25 years of the club that you can share with us tonight?
Yeah, sure. So Oakmont is probably about the seventh or eighth oldest club in Pittsburgh, believe it or not. Allegheny is the first in terms of having golf. The Field Club is the oldest in 1882, but it didn't get golf until 1897. Allegheny comes first in 1895, Pittsburgh Golf Club, and so on. Oakmont comes around officially in 1903, and it was founded by Henry Phones. It's spelled Fownes, but it is pronounced like telephone. Henry was a steel magnate, just like a lot of the wealthy elites at the turn of the century here in Pittsburgh. He owned a company called the Cary Furnace, which at its peak was producing 1,200 tons of iron a day as part of the Homestead Steel Works. That was eventually sold to Andrew Carnegie, in 1898, and then later sold J.P. Morgan and U.S. Steel in 1901. So Oakmont's founder Henry Phones was made a pretty wealthy man at a relatively young age in the late 1890s. And the story goes that he was a big bicycle enthusiast. And one Sunday afternoon, he was welding a bicycle tire back together, and noticed he developed spots in his vision, which led him to a trip to the doctor, and he was misdiagnosed with arteriosclerosis, and he was given about 6 months to a year to live. So he sold off all of his business interests and he traveled. And it was during this time that he really kind of took a liking to golf and traveled to, to Scotland and Ireland and played at some of those courses. Only to find out that, when he welds next time, he should wear protective goggles and that he would be fine. And in fact, he'd live another 37 years after this whole ordeal. And so he's around 1900. This is all happening. He's about 44 years old. He's a millionaire. He's got nothing but time on his hands at this point because he was supposed to be dead. And he decides that he wants to play golf and he wants his own golf course. And they spend a couple of years before they find the property in Oakmont. And then in 1903, they officially purchase the property, and the legend is born.
David, one of the many unique things about Oakmont is that it's a National Historic Landmark. It got that designation back in 1987. How important is that designation for the club?
It's certainly very important. There's very few clubs in the country that that have that full designation from the Department of the Interior. The last I knew, there was only 4. But I'm not sure if that number is still accurate. I know it was us, Pebble Beach, Marion, and I want to say Augusta National. So it's certainly a very something that the membership is very proud of. It's to be in such elite company and to be the first for that matter was certainly a big deal. When it was designated back in the 80s, President Ford came to play and spoke at the dinner, and we have some really cool pictures from that day, actually. And it's like we said, Oakmont, it's just historic through and through. It's hard to believe that some of the biggest moments in history have all happened at the same place, and we're very, very lucky that that's been the case.
David, we all know about the legendary greens there at Oakmont and how fast they are. The Stimpmeter that we all hear about and use to determine the speeds of greens nowadays was created by Edward Stimpson, who was an amateur player from Massachusetts, but he designed the Stimpmeter after attending the 1935 U.S. Open at Oakmont. Is any of that equipment a part of the collection that you have there?
We don't have Stimpson's original Stimpmeter. It is the story that we tell on our. We do actually offer public tours of the club on Mondays. So we're done for the year, but we'll be starting back up again next spring. So when we do tours of the club, that is one of the stories we tell about Stimpson and the creation of the Stimpmeter. We don't have any of the original drawings or any of that on display. But as the story goes, Stimpson was there in 1935, and he watched Gene Sarazen putt off a green or two into a bunker, and thought, "Man, these things are so fast. We need to figure out a way to measure them." And that was when he created the meter. Not long afterwards, and today those greens are as diabolical as they were 100 years ago. They run pretty much 14 or so daily, and if they're having a tournament and the members really want them cranked up, it gets even higher.
Outside of Pittsburgh and the Western Pennsylvania area, you've created some great displays at Montclair Golf Club over in New Jersey. For our folks who are not familiar with Montclair, talk about that club and what you did there.
So Montclair dates back to 1893. They moved a couple different locations before they settled where they are now in West Orange, New Jersey. Montclair is a great club. It reminds me a lot of Allegheny back here in Pittsburgh. that it kind of gets overshadowed by a couple of the courses in a couple of its neighbors like Baltusrol and Mountain Ridge and things like that. But it's a beautiful facility. 27 holes of Donald Ross, 9 holes of Charles Banks. It's the host of the 1973 women's U.S. Women's Amateur that Carol Semple Thompson won, and then the 1985 U.S. Amateur that Sam Randolph won. And it was actually the home club of Jerry Travers back when he won his first 2 U.S. Amateurs in 1907 and 1908. And it was also the home course of a lady named Carolyn Coudone, who holds the USGA record of winning 5 consecutive U.S. Senior Women Amateur Championships. She's the only USGA champion to ever win 5 in a row, and she's the only person to ever win 5 of that event. And it really is a great club. I was lucky enough last fall to speak at the Donald Ross Society's annual event, and that day I actually played with one of the history committee members over at Montclair, and we got to talking, and he was asking questions, and I didn't really think much of it. I just thought we were on the course and chatting away, and about 10 days later, I got a phone call from one of their board members who said, "Hey, I'm coming out to Oakmont. I'd like to talk to you." And by the end of the year, we had a deal to do some work, and I met with them in February, and we discussed, what our goals were for this year and the years going forward. Because, one of the biggest things with what I do is, it does take time. This isn't something that you can rush and try to get done within a week or two. It's something that does certainly take some time to research out and find these artifacts and organize them, and then really create these special displays. So we and the other big thing is it costs money to do that. It costs money to acquire the stuff and build the display cases and frames and everything like that. So we kind of put these plans together. What can we feasibly do this year? What can we do next year? What's our budget for this and that? And so this year we focused on the library room there. That room was actually an old storage closet prior to this year, and they built a beautiful display case within a bookshelf or a bookcase, and it is now the home of their Havemeyer Trophy and Robert Cox Cup replicas, and the displays around them are focused on some of those champions like Carol Semple Thompson and Sam Randolph. And the photos on the wall are curated to tell the story of golf at Montclair, and that includes the 4 individuals I mentioned earlier. And also we used a couple of the old hickory clubs to tell the story of the Anderson family, which for those that don't know, old Tom Anderson came over from Scotland with his 2 boys, Tommy and Willie. And Willie Anderson was a 4-time U.S. Open champion in pretty much the first decade of the tournament, and before he tragically passed away at a young age. And young Tom was the pro at Oakmont from 1912 to 1913 before he replaced his father at Montclair after he passed away. And young Tom was at Montclair for 2 years before he was tragically killed in the car accident. But we had clubs from all 3 of those guys, and we have them beautifully displayed in that clubhouse. And that was one of our big projects for this year. And then the other major project was their president's room, which was their board room. And they've been lucky enough to have 2 USGA presidents, 3 Metropolitan Golf Association presidents, and a couple Women's Metropolitan Golf Association presidents. And that's something to be very proud of, that your members of your club are seen as influential and strong enough to be leaders of these regional organizations. So we really wanted to highlight that at Montclair, and that's what we did in the boardroom. We got headshots of all these individuals and kind of told their story, and now the membership can learn about their club in a different way. The work we do is really just storytelling, and that's the key to all the work that I do. Is if you can tell a compelling story, you're going to walk away with it. So that's what I try to do day in and day out.
David, I have to imagine you've heard some great Arnold Palmer stories, particularly at the event last week at McKeesport Heritage Center. Do you mind sharing some of those?
Oh boy, there's a lot of great ones, and I cannot recommend the book Arnold Palmer Homespun Stories of the King anymore. It is one of the best Arnold Palmer books that is out there. It's by a local author from Latrobe here. And when Arnie passed away in 2016, Chris, who wrote the book, reached out in the newspapers and put a word out that he wanted your Arnold Palmer stories, and he wanted to share them, and he got 400 or 500 responses, and not a single one of them was negative. And it really just became the basis of that book. But when it comes to Arnold Palmer stories, I unfortunately don't have a personal one, because I never got to meet the man. I wish I did, because he's one of my heroes, and I think he was the hero for many of us out there. But one story that I do have was told to me by a gentleman named Marino Parensenzo, and that might be a familiar name to some. He was writer for Golf Digest for many years, and he wrote for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette for about 45 or 50 years out here in Pittsburgh. And he wrote the history book at Oakmont. And when I first started there, they were redoing the book after Dustin Johnson won in 2016. And I got to, sit down with Marino a couple afternoons and just, kind of go through pictures and stuff like that. And it was right after Mr. Palmer died. And, he goes, well, do you have an Arnold Palmer story? And I said, no, unfortunately, I never got to meet him. And he said, oh, he goes, Dave, the stories that you hear about how wonderful a man he was they're not BS. It's the truth. He goes, and let me tell you, let me tell you exactly what I mean by that. And he said, in the mid 70s, I just started covering golf for the Post Gazette, and they sent me to the Masters. And he said it was my second or third Masters. And Arnie shot 83 on Friday to miss the cut. And he said, Dave, anybody can shoot 83 at Augusta to miss the cut on Friday. He goes, but when Arnold Palmer does it, it's a story. So, in the old days, then you could go to the locker room and talk to these guys. You didn't have the media tents and things like that. So Marino said, he proceeded to go to the Champions locker room, and there was 2 or 3 other guys there when he got there that had the same idea, but they were all kind of standing, back from Arnie because they didn't want to bother him. And, Arnie's sitting at his locker, sweating, drinking a beer, and, waves the guys over. One of the writers supposedly said, King, we hate to talk to you at a time like this. To which Arnie replied, guys, nobody died. I just played terrible. And he goes, what do you need to know? And proceeded to spend 45 minutes to an hour, answering all their questions. And Marino said to me, he goes, Dave, I've covered every athlete in this city, from Barry Bonds to Terry Bradshaw and everywhere in between. He goes, most of them, if they would have had the day that Arnold had, wouldn't have even looked at you as they walked past you. He said, but that was Arnold Palmer. He would spend the time, regardless of how he performed, to make sure that the writers and, anybody that wanted his autograph did not leave disappointed that day. And he said, fast forward about 15 years, he goes, I got to know him. I used to go down to Latrobe a couple times a year just to, sit and talk with him. And he goes, in the mid 80s, he was in contention over at the Open Championship. He said, and this was a big deal. He goes, by this time, Arnie really wasn't contending in, the majors. And he said, but on Sunday, he made a 10 out of a pop bunker on the back 9 to shoot himself out of the tournament. And he said, now, Dave, anybody can make a 10 out of a pop bunker to lose the Open Championship, but when Arnold Palmer does it, it's a story. And he proceeded to go to the locker room again, and he walks in, and Arnie looks up and says, oh, I knew I was going to have to talk to you. To which Marino replied, "Well, if you didn't," he goes, "if you weren't making a mess out of these pop bunkers," he goes, "I wouldn't have had to bother you so soon." And they proceeded to chit chat, normal, how's the wife and kids and things like that for 20, 25 minutes or so. And then Marino asked Arnie, he goes, "So what the hell happened in that bunker?" To which, Arnie supposedly responded, "God himself couldn't get the ball out of that bunker, and look what happened to me." But he said, "Dave, that was Arnold Palmer." He goes, he was, the stories you hear, he was through and through the gentleman that has always been portrayed. He goes, the world needs more guys like him. And, that certainly seems to be the case. He really was, they broke the mold when they made him.
You've done some great work with our friends over at the Golf Heritage Society. Shout out to our good friend, Dr. Bern Bernanke there. But talk about some of the articles you've written for them and being at their annual conference this year in Lexington, Kentucky.
The Golf Heritage Society is a great organization. If you're interested in collecting hickories or just golf history in general, it's the organization to join. I believe it's about $50 a year for the annual membership. And the best part of that membership is, the magazine that is sent out quarterly called The Golf. Jim Davis does just an absolutely phenomenal job editing that. And I'm really proud to be a part of it and be given a platform to write with. And, I joined the society probably 3 years ago now. And, they asked me how, if I wanted to get more involved. And I said, yeah, I'd absolutely love to write. I said I spend a lot of time writing for the clubs. I'm finding all these stories. I think it'd be neat to, share these stories with a broader audience. And, they said, "Oh, that's great. We're always looking for writers for the golf. So, whatever you want to write, let's do it." And the first article I wrote was on a guy named Eben Byers, who was a member at Allegheny and the 1906 U.S. Amateur champion. And, besides the fact that he was one of the best golfers Western Pennsylvania ever produced, his story is tragic at the end, where he gets injured and ends up drinking radium water, 3 bottles of it a day for 3 or 4 years before his teeth start to fall out, and he gets radium jaw and cancer and every horrific thing in between, and basically dies this horrific, tragic death at the age of 52. And I was working on that story for Allegheny because he was one of their most prominent members, and so I sent the story to Jim Davis, and it was printed, and luckily enough, it was selected to be their article of the year for 2022. And I've written for them pretty much every magazine since then. There's times where life gets in the way and I don't get a chance to, so I probably won't be in another one until next year at this point. But it's a great magazine. The whole organization contributes to it one way or the other. And the organization just overall is fantastic. We have an annual convention every year. Last year was in Indianapolis. This year it was in Lexington, Kentucky. And it's just a blast. It's really a fun time, especially for someone like me, because it's kind of it's networking on a couple different fronts, but it's just really cool to meet these guys, and especially these collectors, to see what they have and what they've acquired, and the stories that go behind them, and things like that. So I'm very fortunate that the clubs send me to go and try to find artifacts for them while I'm there. And while I was there this year, I actually got a trophy for the field club that dates back to 1918, and was able to pick up a couple things for Oakmont while I was there. And it's just it's a cool week. We play a bit of golf, but the rest of the time between the presentations and the trade show and just the general, and the room trading too is big. Guys basically open up their suites to everybody to walk in and check out their collections. It's just it's really cool. And if into that sort of thing, I highly recommend joining the Golf Heritage Society because it's just such a wonderful group.
David, one more before I let you go. And you created a wonderful DIY project where you took a baseball card display box, you turned it into something fantastic from a golf perspective. Do you mind sharing what you did and how you did it?
Yeah, sure. So, doing what I do, I'm also a collector. I've grown up collecting autographs my entire life. Kind of started with baseball and has transformed into golf really here in the last 10 years or so. So, I collect a lot of different golf autographs, and the signed golf balls has been my new little hobby. I can't seem to stay on one long enough before I move on to the next one, but I have about 15 or 20 signed balls in my collection, and they kind of adorn my dresser in the bedroom here at home. And I get them at Michael's. They have these nice little individual cases. I went and they were sold out of all the golf ones. And I thought, oh, man, I don't really want to go searching for these. And I looked at the baseball card one, and it's supposed to hold a baseball and then a trading card. And I thought, well, that could work. All it needs is a little tinkering. So I'm very lucky that I come from a crafty family. My mom is very arts and crafty, and so I got to give her credit for that. So I was looking around, Michael's. I found some fake looking grass mat and chopped that up a little bit and hot glued it down, and was able to create these pretty cool looking little display cases that now host my Arnold Palmer signed golf ball with an Arnold Palmer trading card from the 90s, and the other one I have Adam Scott in there with his rookie card, and the whole little thing was done for probably, both cases were done for less than $50. So it's little things like that just kind of get imaginative of what you can do and how you can do it. And yeah, so it was a fun little weekend project when I got back from Kentucky.
David, before I let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, whether it's following you online or it's on social media?
Online, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the PA Golf Historian. I do most of my stuff on those two. You can follow me on LinkedIn under my name, David Moore, and I believe that's pretty much it right now. Hopefully, down the road here, get a website to kind of promote the business side of things a little bit more. But the Twitter and the Instagram right now are the best ways to get in touch with me. Or if your club is interested in doing some work, feel free to email me. My email is dmoore, Moore, historical@gmail.com. And be happy to talk to anybody that's looking to preserve and present their stories.
Well, David, you've been fantastic, and I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and be a part of the show. Your knowledge about what's going on from a historical perspective around our game is right at the top, second to none, in my opinion. I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing a lot of that with us. I hope this is just the first of many visits that we get to have with you. And again, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Chris, anytime. I'm always happy to talk golf history with anybody that's willing to listen. So anytime you need a guest, I'd be happy to jump on.
Well, David, I can't thank you enough for that. Take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. I hope we get to catch up with you again real soon.
Sounds good, Chris. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Take care, David.
You too.
That is David Moore, folks. Again, you can follow him at PA Golf Historian, and you can send him an email. dmoorehistorical@gmail.com is his email address. David talks about treasures, and he is one. I hope, like I say, this is the first of many, many visits that we get to have with him, get to learn from him. What great stuff about so many places and things from a golf historical perspective we learned tonight from David. A little bit in the previous segment with Chris Sheehan kind of leading into David, but what fantastic stuff at Pittsburgh Field Club, at Oakmont, at Montclair Golf Club, at Allegheny Golf Club. So much great history about our game of golf right there in and around the city of Pittsburgh. And David shared so many wonderful stories. I love the stuff that he talked about with the King. Like, a lot of it wasn't, hey, from a great memory that the King had or a situation that Arnold was going through, but it shows you what a great man he was for how he handled it and how he handled the people around him who had to ask the story, and he gave them what they needed to know. So kudos to David for sharing that and all the wonderful things he did with us tonight. I'll look for him to come back on the show again real soon. Folks, before I close up shop tonight, you've heard me talk about some great products that I saw at the PGA Merchandise Show. And another one that stood out to me is On Point Golf. Game-changing, three-dimensional ball markers that science shows will help us see the line better when we're putting and therefore make more putts and lower our scores. See for yourself why Jim Furyk and I are big fans by going online to onpointgolf.us. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this episode of Next on the Tee. I want to send out my sincere thanks again to Tom Patri, Tom Purtzer, Chris Sheehan, and David Moore for joining me this week. Next week, I'm excited. I get to have 4 fantastic friends of the show all on the same episode. We're going to lead it off with Ohio State legend and 21-time winner between the PGA and Champions Tour, John Cook, will be back. I always have a great time when Cookie's a part of the show. 11-time winner, including the 1978 PGA Championship at Oakmont and the 1986 Players Championship, John Mahaffey will be here. John is another great friend, as is one of Western Pennsylvania's best, Bob Friend Jr., who's also a member out at Oakmont. He'll join me as well, as will top 100 instructor in our game, Eric Johnson. He is such a great friend. So it's going to be a really fun show, folks. I hope you'll come back, tune in, and be a part of it with us. You can find this show available as a podcast just about anywhere you get your podcast content. In particular, we're out there on TribLive.com and the Pittsburgh Tribune Review site. Go to TribLive.com, click on Sports and then Podcasts, and you're going to see the show front and center available for you free right there. You can also find the show on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audio Boom, and Player.fm. And as always, my thanks to the folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts and a staff pick. Please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right from your favorite device on Good Pods. But most of all, my thanks to all of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate you all so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.